Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Enchanting Lawyer Podcast. This is a show where we interview the most inspiring entrepreneurs from all over the world. They share their ideas with us and help us do our jobs much better, keep us inspired, and who knows, we may learn something new every time. Today, I have a very exciting and interesting guest. His name is Matthew Kimberley, and Matthew he has done many things in his career. He's an entrepreneur. He's a speaker. He's an author of many interesting books about public speaking, about sales. He's a very persuasive and entertaining keynote speaker. And I had the privilege to see him speak a few times, and I met him in person as well a few times. Matthew, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks very much for having me here, Jacob.
Matthew, first of all, why don't you give us a little bit of an intro about yourself? I know you're not in the U.S., so tell us where you are in the world right now, and then we can jump into the show.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Matthew Kimberley. I live in Malta, which is in the Mediterranean, small country just due south of Italy and due north of Libya. And what I do from here is I help small business owners, solo practitioners, and slightly larger businesses close more deals. So my focus is really on helping people become more effective at taking somebody from being a lead or a prospect to being a customer. I don't focus too much on lead generation, although marketing and sales clearly are very closely related. But what I really like to do is help people get better at the tiny disciplines that it takes in order to make people more likely to say yes to you.
And, I think one of your keynotes is interesting. You said that marketing does not get you clients, does not get you sales. And I thought it was very interesting because in my business, in the legal business, and people that, it's all about marketing. We want to get more leads. We want to get more pay-per-click. But it's not really all about this. In fact, it's not about this at all. And I'm curious to get your take about what do you think is the state of sales today, the way you see it?
I don't think sales has ever changed. And when I say marketing doesn't get you clients, this is one of the fundamental beliefs of the Book Yourself Solid system. Book Yourself Solid is a client-getting small business marketing and sales solution developed by my former business partner, Michael Port. And for a long time, 6 years, I was in charge of Book Yourself Solid worldwide. I used to train Book Yourself Solid coaches on how to teach the Book Yourself Solid methodology. And the idea behind saying marketing doesn't get you clients is that marketing just creates awareness about who you are. You can do bad marketing, you can do good marketing. Marketing is telling the world I exist and attracting attention. And it's once you get that attention, it's what you do with it that gets you a client. You could attract attention for doing terrible things. You could attract attention for doing outlandish things. I'm sure many of your listeners represent people who have attracted the wrong types of attention by doing terrible things or having been accused of doing terrible things, for example. So it's what you do with the attention when you've got it. There's obviously good marketing and there's bad marketing, and good marketing will make a salesman's job easier. But marketing is writing a book, flyering a neighborhood, going on a radio show, running up and down the street shouting, look at me, look at me. When people are then looking at you and they put up their hand and they say, I self-identify as a potential client for this service, that's when sales begins. And sales really hasn't changed. I think that consumers are more educated now. Because we can have any information we want by pulling our phone out of our pocket, which means that if anything, sales has more integrity today than it ever had in the past, because some of the shortcuts that ethically dubious salespeople in the past might use when locked in a room just don't stand up anymore. Things like, you can't get this at a lower price anywhere else, or the price is going up on Monday, or you have a 60-day cooling off period, or there is no cooling off period, or any of these devious tactics that, or, it's not available anywhere in town in blue, you have to have it in red. These kind of crappy, scrappy techniques aren't available to salespeople anymore. So what it's really, the state of sales today is that the playing field has been leveled, and the prospect and the salesperson really should be approaching as they should have been from the beginning, but now there's really no excuse, and it's counterproductive if you don't approach a sales transaction as being one that's going to be mutually beneficial, where both parties will get as much out of the transaction as the other.
And, Matthew, I think in the business of customer service, when we try to help people with whatever needs, I always look at when I hire new people, and I'm thinking, can they sell? And if they can't, can I teach them? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted always to ask you that question. Do you think that really, really good salespeople are naturally good salespeople, or they can really be taught to become so good? And if so, I'm curious, how can you teach somebody to be a good salesperson?
Sure. So, sales is made up of 2.5 parts. The first one is about activity, right? So a poor salesperson who is making 100 calls a day will outperform a good salesperson who's only making 2 most of the time. Then you've got form, which is really the discipline and the system that you follow. Process, there is a process for sales. There is a process that you need to follow that makes it more likely that a good prospect will say yes. We can be slightly stricter about not letting things drop. We can make sure that we preemptively handle any potential problems. We can be on the lookout for potential issues and face them head on. We can spend time building rapport. We can properly qualify our customers. We can ask qualifying questions to make sure that we're not wasting our time with them and they're not wasting their time with us. And so if you follow the process, which, and each company has their own process, but they're all pretty similar, starts with rapport building, normally ends with a close, then the third part is the part which I believe that salesmen can be made, yes. And my mission or my guarantee, if you like, is that I can make anybody a better salesperson because I've broken the sales process down into various components, and I think that if we can get 5% better at 15, 20 or 30 different disciplines, and we use all of those disciplines in the sales process, then we're going to become better salespeople. So salespeople can be taught, yes. They can be taught the process to follow, they can be taught how to get good at the process, and they can be encouraged to do sufficient activity. That's the role of a sales manager in order to get them the results that they need. What is, I believe, a stumbling block or potential stumbling block for people is that confidence absolutely comes into selling. Confidence, absolutely. Like any athlete will tell you that if their mental game is off, then they don't run as fast or they don't perform as well. They have to be focused. They have to be on point. And they have to have their mind on what they're doing and not be feeling generally optimistic. So I think that if you are inclined towards negativity, I don't mean you should be a Tigger-like character or a bubbly character or a happy or a bouncy character. I don't mean that at all. Some of the best salespeople I know are very, very straight-laced. But if you're sure that you're not going to sell this person, you'll be right every single time. Guaranteed you will not sell that person or you will not close that deal if you've already talked yourself out of it before you've got into it. So if you're somebody who is inclined towards defeatism, then you will have a tougher time. But there are also strategies and tactics for increasing your sales confidence as well. So in short, sales can be taught. Yes, some people are naturally more inclined to be good salespeople. So it's important to know whether you're inclined to be that kind of person or not, so that if needs be, you can get better at it.
And I think you mentioned that as well. You mentioned whether confidence can be taught in sales and public speaking, and you're saying that it's possible to practice or actually teach people to become more confident.
Yes, I believe that there are certain techniques and strategies that we can apply that can remind people where where sales confidence comes from. And confidence isn't the same as enthusiasm. It's really not the same. I am confident that tomorrow somebody in the United States will be stabbed. I am not enthusiastic about that. They're very different things. Confidence means that we can look at the data, we can look at what's going on in the outside world, we can analyze and examine our actions and the consequences of our actions and be reasonably confident that there is a result waiting for us. So let me give you an example. I am confident that if I make 100 telephone calls or send 100 emails, I will get 2 sales appointments. Right, so that kind of confidence allows you to build traditional confidence because you know that you're just 50 emails away from getting a sales appointment, right? And what does that mean? Well, it gives you the confidence to go ahead and follow the system and trust the system and lead with it. I'd also say you've got to get your priorities right. If you're desperate for money because you're going to be homeless, then that desperation is going to fuel your confidence levels. That desperation is also going to perhaps, help you, but in many instances, it's more likely to damage the confidence levels that you have, and you get trapped in this ever worsening cycle of despair. And I've been in sales for so many years. I've seen salesmen go off the brink. They think that the most important thing in the world is to be the number one closer in their organization or to be the number one business developer in their organization. And it's really not true. You don't. You have to. I believe that when you can sell, you're free. I believe that when you can sell, you can be in control of your income because you can always go and find those people to talk to and you don't even have to have a product or a service when you can sell, right? You can just buy cheap and sell slightly more expensive. You can go and buy a candy bar from a wholesale outlet and sell it to somebody who will give you more than you paid for it. You don't need any other skills. You don't need a profession. You don't need to be a creator. You don't need a university degree if you can sell. And I think that if you can sell, you don't need to go hungry. So that takes, I think, a lot of the pressure off. And I think a lot of people would be better at sales if they just chilled out and enjoyed it more.
And I agree with you on that. Some of the examples you gave earlier involve people who are calling, trying to make appointments. The traditional probably sales person that you can imagine. But what if you are selling services? Let's say somebody comes to my office, they've never met me before, and you're trying to convince them to sign up with you. What do you think some of the skills you need as a salesperson in a different kind of sales environment to be able to do well and close more contracts and actually make people want to hire you?
So what exactly is the question? How can you close more clients?
So for example, when you describe the salesperson who is on the phone trying to get calling 100 people, trying to get people to engage with them, right? Mm-hmm. But what about if you are a service person and the client is coming to the office to see you for the first time, and you have to convince them to hire you for whether you're an attorney or an accountant or any other service? Do you think it's a different skill now that you see them in person and you have to convince them by either giving knowledge or being personable or whatever the trick that you feel is going to seal the deal? Sure.
Well, I don't think there's any trick involved in sales. A good salesman or salesperson always knows where they're going. So the purpose typically of a cold caller, which is a thankless, miserable job, by the way, nobody likes it. Anyone who says they do is lying. Some organizations still deem it to be the most cost-efficient way of generating appointments or leads, and that's great. I don't doubt that their data is correct, but it doesn't make it necessarily enjoyable. But I think you always have to be aware as a salesperson that your role is to control and to lead the prospect in the direction that you want them to go, so long as that direction is in their best interest. So if you know that you've got a product or service that will help them and will serve them, that they can afford without bankrupting themselves, or that they can justify financially, then your job as a salesperson is to lead them in the right direction. Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, calls it the straight line. He teaches straight line persuasion. He says you've got to take them from where they are to where you want them to be. And when you're talking to people on the telephone, typically the goal of your telephone call is not to close a deal. It's not to make a sale, especially if it's a cold call. It's either to get information or to set up a meeting. That's it. That's the purpose of your telephone call. Now, if somebody walks into your law practice and they have a question, then the meeting has already come to you. So what is your goal in that situation? Well, the first goal in that situation is to qualify them, is to work out whether they're in the right place and whether you can help them. And if you have deemed that they are qualified, then your next goal is to demonstrate to them that you are the obvious choice. It's not to convince them to work with you. It's to show them that you are the obvious choice. And you do that through rapport building exercises, by asking the right questions, by demonstrating social proof, by getting the prospect to do a lot of the talking. I think, in the UK, I was having a conversation with a US friend of mine who happens to be a lawyer. Yep. And I said, in the UK, it may have changed since I've not been living there the past 10 or 15 years or so, but once you graduate from law school, you're more or less set. Customers come to you. Maybe there are too many lawyers in the US, I don't know, but in the UK, if you're a lawyer, you don't convince anybody of anything. Perhaps if you're a corporate firm, or you're a firm that has a lot of corporate clients, every now and again you'll be expected to pitch or to wine and dine your customers so you don't lose the big value ones. But if somebody walks through the door of a law office in the UK, then they're already sold, and you determine whether you're going to work with them or not. You should really be putting your prospects through an application process. You're here. I know I can help you. Why should I work with you? You flip it back on them. Give me 10 reasons why I should accept you as a client. And what that does is that makes you immediately more attractive to the prospect, because somebody who doesn't need the business. Whether you do or not. The old cliched ambulance chasing, Better Call Saul style lawyer who's scratching around. That's not an attractive prospect for anybody but the most desperate. When you go to a doctor, you don't ask them to audition themselves to win your business. They say, of course I know what's wrong with you. Yes, I can diagnose it. Yes, I can fix it. And if you muck me about, then you're straight out the door, and I don't tolerate any nonsense. And I truly believe that that's the position that salespeople should be coming at the vast majority of prospect inquiries, prospect relationships with, which is why the marketing is tough, and which is why the marketing has a tough job when it comes to being in alignment with the sales. Because if the marketing is, we're going to get you through the door at any cost, come in here to claim a free voucher, then you've got to. It's difficult then for the salesperson to persuade someone who's come in to pick up a free voucher that they should be spending money. Whereas if the marketing is focused on, we are the most premium problem solvers in the whole of San Diego. Come in if you've got a problem and don't forget your wallet. Then the people who are walking through the door are going to be a very different kind of prospect.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are great tips, and more and more people should realize that we have to be the one interviewing the customer, making them realize that they came from the right place as opposed to be the other way.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest fear that professionals have, especially in my business, is the fear of selling. Mm-hmm. The fear of selling that I have to sell. I'm supposed to be a professional. I'm supposed to be a lawyer. I never learned how to sell. They don't teach us. They don't teach any professional, whether you're a doctor or an attorney, how to sell. And this is a skill. And I said that's why you become so successful, because you mastered the art of teaching that. Mm-hmm. Once again, we're talking to Matthew Kimberley, a British self-help author, an expert on sales, and a great, amazing public speaker. Matthew, when you see salespeople, when you see those presentations, everybody's talking about the concept of urgency, as effective method of sales. Why don't you explain to us what it is and how do we use it effectively in sales?
So urgency and scarcity are bedfellows. They're two techniques that we know that work, and they are frequently abused, and nevertheless, we are aware that if we can incorporate some level of urgency or scarcity into our sales pitch or our sales presentation or our proposal or our offer, then people are more likely to say yes. It's human psychology. The work of Robert Cialdini, who of course wrote the great book Influence, Psychology of Persuasion, recognizes that scarcity is one of the great motivators of human behavior. And urgency is a form of scarcity. If you don't do this now, it may be too late and you don't want to miss out. As human beings, we are inclined to be cautious, and when we have the fear of loss because there are limited numbers of something, it's only available for a limited time. If we want that thing enough, we're more likely to move right now. If you're a real estate agent and you're selling properties, you hope that there is more than one person interested in your property, because that means they will be fighting with each other in order to buy the property. So what about if you're a lawyer? How can you incorporate urgency into your sales process at that point? Well, one of the things is to tell the truth. Like, if I've got a pressing legal matter and the longer I leave it, the worse it will become, that has to be highlighted by the lawyer who's making the sale or who is signing the client, as long as it's true. And certainly, you can either do nothing and watch it get worse, or you can act now and we can nip it in the bud, is something that I would definitely tell somebody if I was confident that I could solve their problem for them. The other thing that you can do is let them know that you are genuinely busy and that you've only got space for one more client this week, if it's true, or you have to listen. You can look them in the eye. When you're busy, you say, I'll take you as a client, but only if you decide right now, because I'm going on vacation on Tuesday, and when I get back, I won't have the time to work with you. What would happen if you said that? Do you think they'd be more likely to say yes? Probably. If they don't say yes at that point and they think you're a bit of an ass, it's because you haven't done a good enough job showing them that you can definitely solve their problem before you leave. So you can absolutely manufacture urgency, and it doesn't have to be fake urgency. It can be, I want you to make a decision now because I want you to make a decision now. It can be, listen, this deal is good right now, and if you make a decision, it's going to cost you $5,000, and if you make a decision tomorrow, I promise you I will put the price up to $25,000. Why would you do that? Because I know that I'm the best thing for you, and I need to get you fixed immediately. Right.
And I think it works no matter how you look at it. It's just, you see it in different ways how people do it, and it's always about the urgency now. We have 3 days left, or let's do this, and then they open up and we're closing it now. It's amazing how people are always they run and do it, and it can work in any way. Mm-hmm. Matthew, I first of all, I want to recommend Matthew's book, How to Get a Grip. I really find it very interesting. And but I want to ask you one thing about this book. What I found very valuable and personal to me is the chapter where you talk about relationships, and you say it's not who you know, it's how you treat them. And we can do business, we can be the best, but if we don't value relationship, whether it's with our spouses, with our friends, with our colleagues, we're not going to be able to be successful. So why don't you share with me a little bit about your philosophy about treating people who are around you, whether it's your spouse, your business partners, and how that helped you become successful?
Well, I think loyalty is important. I don't mean you should be blindly loyal to anybody, but I think loyalty and trust go hand in hand. So I like to think that my wife, my friends, my business partners would use that word about me, and that's something that I think we should all just try that. There's nothing special about me there. I just, that's one of the words, one of the philosophies that's quite important to me is loyalty. If you're going to be able to count on someone, you've got to be consistent with that. If you say that you'll be there, make sure that you're there. Michael Port, one of my best friends and business partner for a long time, he says the quickest way to build trust is just to do what you say you're going to do. And if you repeatedly do what you say you're going to do, then people will learn to trust your word. And that becomes very important. But I think the other thing that we forget to do perhaps is invest in our relationships. So that I believe that the best salesman in the world will become a better salesman if they invest more heavily in their relationships. So what I mean by that is the more people that are aware of you, the more people that talk about you, the more people that know you, the more people that trust you, the easier it is for you to be persuasive. It's just obvious, right? If you want to get a table at a restaurant and you happen to know the concierge because you've invested in a relationship with him, then he's more likely to give you that table at the restaurant. If you want to get, Oprah Winfrey to write a birthday card to your grandmother, and over the years you've invested in your relationship with Oprah's sister's dog walker, then the chances of you getting what you want are going to increase. And if those people vouch for you, you will close more deals. I'm thinking of working with Jacob. What do you think? Well, I've known Jacob for years, and I can only say positive things about him. So, investing in our relationships means that we will become more persuasive. We will become, it will be easier for us to do stuff, right? What is the key role of the CEO in any organization? It's twofold. One is to manage strategy, and the other one is to build and maintain relationships. All they do is have meetings and think. That's all that CEOs do. They don't change the toner in the photocopier. They don't, maintain the engines. They don't do highly skilled development work. They just maintain relationships because that's it's the value of an Ivy League education as well. It's who you know will help you get more of what you want. And if you invest in your relationships in 5 to 10, 20 minutes a day, just by making sure that the 90, 100, 200 people who are most important in your life are kept in touch with over the space of a month or two, and we're constantly adding new people into our network, then I believe that you can only win.
And I totally agree with that. But I also believe that if your philosophy towards relationships is flawed, there's no way you can be a successful business person, because at some point, people are going to catch up to you. So it has to be a full karma. Starting, with your close circle and all the way to people that you just met the first time.
It doesn't have to be that way. We always hear about geniuses, savants, people like Steve Jobs was a famous example. Elon Musk, another famous example. These people apparently have a very, very small handful of very, very intense, loyal relationships. And a lot of people in their network see them as prickly and cold and unfriendly. And that's okay, but let's not forget that these people tend to be the outliers. These are not normal people. These are literally the most wealthy and successful people in the world. They're not like you and me. So what about the general people? What about the guys in your town? What about the other 99% of relatively successful business people? What are they doing? They're networking at the golf club. They are collaborating in online forums. They're doing the things that there's no reason you shouldn't do because it's entirely accessible and within your reach.
Right, absolutely. So we don't want to look at the extreme. We want to look at people who are doing it well, and you want to be like them. You don't want. Obviously, maybe you want to be like Steve Jobs, maybe not, but that's not the norm, and I agree with it.
I think it's great that we hold up these people as role models. I've just read Elon Musk's biography by Ashley Vance, and I was reading it and thinking, boy, what guy is not going to read that and say, I want to be a bit more like Elon Musk. I want to send rockets into space. I want to develop hyperloops and electric companies, and I want to completely revolutionize the auto industry. It's phenomenal. Of course you want to be like him, but then you remember there's a reason that someone's writing a book about him, because he is absolutely not like you or me.
Absolutely. He's very, very different. You can talk a whole show about him, but but you know what? The way I look at it is, if you take even 1% from what you learned about him or Steve Jobs or Richard Branson, and say, you know what, this 1% I will try to implement in my life, that will be something that you can say, you know what, this is how I'm going to be successful. It can't be all that one person, because that's one person is one of a kind, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know so much about Steve Jobs, but certainly in the case of Richard Branson, Elon Musk, I'd say, you know, what have they not ever been afraid to do? And that's to raise funds by selling. You know,
Yes.
Musk rescued his entire company by taking engineers off the manufacturing line and getting them on the phone to sell cars.
Right.
You know, he was in talks with, secret talks with Google to buy Tesla. And they didn't need them in the end, because he pulled 500 people off the factory floor and onto the telephones, and they raised enough cash to dramatically increase the value of the company. And the same with Richard Branson. How did he get started? Well, it wasn't by thinking about doing nice things. It was by driving around in a van selling records. And then how did he start his airline? He didn't start it by thinking, well, where can I buy an aeroplane? He thought, how many tickets can I sell how many tickets do I need to sell in order to charter an aeroplane? And he started by selling the tickets, and only when he'd sold the tickets did he have an airline. So selling is the key. Selling is, if you can't sell, you haven't got a product. You've got a government contract.
You have nothing. Matthew, as we come to the end of our show, I want to ask you to share one piece of advice for somebody who is, feels stuck in their, business because they can't sell, because they can't, convert. What will be one piece of advice you would tell somebody like that to start doing now to change that?
I would ask myself, what is the worst that can happen if I do this thing that I think I should probably do, but I'm not doing for whatever reason? I like to live by that adage. What's the worst that can happen if I do this? So let's say let's take something small, like you decide you want to start doing, I don't know, online presentations, webinars.
Right.
And you think, well, I should probably plan one for December, and what are we now? We're at the beginning of September, so I should probably plan one for December. I'll need a couple of months to get my slides together. And I say, no, don't do that. Do it next week. What is the worst that can happen if you do it next week? The worst that can happen is nobody's there, so nobody's there to see it. The worst that can happen is your slides don't look as nice as you want them to look. But the best that can happen is you've got it out of the way and you now know how to do it, and it's become easy. I think creating a new normal is important. If you're not used to doing things, do them more quickly. Force yourself to do them in order that next time they'll be normal. Speaking on stage, do it tomorrow in order that you've got it out the way. If you're terrified of something, I think that's a good reason to do it. So ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen if I pursue this line of inquiry? What is the worst that can happen if I ask this person to give me $15,000 to fix their problem? What is the worst that can happen if I tell somebody that I don't like the meal that I have in front of me? In the UK, we're very bad at complaining. In the States and certainly in Israel, I know you're very good at complaining.
Yes.
Yeah, you've got no problem with being direct, right? In the UK, we refuse to be direct. If we were eating a meal that tastes disgusting and the server says, how's your meal? We will say, very nice, thank you. And we will suffer because we don't want to make a fuss. I say, what's the worst that can happen if you tell the truth? Well, here's what happens. The server says, are you enjoying your meal? You say, no, I'm sorry. It really doesn't taste very nice at all. The worst that can happen is that you're going to have a bad meal. The best that can happen is that you're going to have a much better meal because the server's going to apologize, replace it for you, and knock 50% off your bill. What is the worst that can happen? Get out of your own way and get on your horse. And, you only live once, for Christ's sake. You only live once. Seize the day.
I love it. Seize the day, absolutely. And Matthew, why don't you share with our listeners verbally where they can find you, your website, your Twitter, whatever you want to be used to connect with you. And we'll also link in the show notes all those properties as well.
Sure. The very, very best place to go is MatthewKimberley.com. That's MatthewKimberley.com, MatthewKimberley.com. Give me your email address and I will start to write you delightful emails. And you can download my guide to networking, which is called 5 Things You Need to Do Every Morning to Get More Clients in 60 Days. But it all starts with you giving me your email address and me giving you everything I've got. So, Jacob, if you could point people in that direction, that would be fantastic.
Perfect. We'll do that. And Matthew, I want to personally thank you once again for taking the time. I know you're a busy man, and truly pleasure to connect with you. And hopefully we'll see you in San Diego or in one of the conferences we we sometimes attend together.
Absolutely. The pleasure was entirely mine. Thanks so much,
Thanks, sir. Have a beautiful day.